from North Carolina. They smashed windows, screamed obscenities, and forced cops to use pepper spray. Students at the University of North Carolina became violently intolerant during an immigration speech by former Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo and forced him to flee the campus. So where's the free speech on campus?
We're joined on the phone by former Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo and live in Durham, North Carolina, Riley Matheson, who is the UNC student who arranged the speech. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so Riley, let me start with you. You decide to invite Congressman Tancredo to come and speak about his thoughts on immigration and students' tuition at your school. What happens 10 minutes into the speech?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on. I do appreciate the opportunity. Also, it wasn't exactly me who invited Congressman Tancredo. It was the chapter of my organization, Youth for Western Civilization. But yeah, we were hoping to have him speak on in-state tuition for illegals because it's a pertinent subject for our club, and we were trying to get that opinion expressed on UNC's campus.
Sure,
so,
well, absolutely, and Tom Tancredo is a great guest to ask to come and do it. Congressman, have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, I've had, I have been around this bush a couple of times, and so, in fact, I've been in places where there have been protests, but I don't think I have ever seen anything where the professors in the room, the teachers, and I use that term advisedly, the adults in the room were encouraging these kids, and instead of acting as their mentors and providing a much better example for what they should be doing, these people were actually egging them on. It goes to show you what goes on inside the classroom. If that's what went on inside this particular event, I mean, that was the most discouraging thing for me, to watching that, because students, hey, they get a little rowdy, they get a little loud. Now, when they start throwing rocks and bricks through windows, that changes the whole scene. But when these adults in the room start acting just as badly, then we've got a real problem. And you're right, down at Napolitano should look at what goes on our campuses in these left-wing radical organizations, and she'll find out what's really a threat to the republic. And it sure as hell isn't people who are concerned about immigration reform.
Well, the interesting thing is, Congressman, we're actually going to have Secretary Napolitano on the show, and we'll ask her those questions in just about an hour from now. Riley, let me take it back to you for a second, because I know that you also had John Kerry come to speak at the school. Did you see similar reactions from people who didn't agree with him?
No, absolutely not. Actually, John Kerry came on March 20th, and the day before that, Donna Brazil came. And also on March 19th, we were fortunate enough to host Babe Buchanan. But no, I mean, there were no violent protests. To my knowledge, there weren't any protests at all from conservatives. But if there were, there certainly weren't any violent protests.
Right. Well, Congressman,
so this is typical.
Congressman, the University of North Carolina has apologized for the fiasco on campus, but it certainly does make the point, and there's the apology right there from the chancellor, it does make it look as if, given what Riley just said, the left in this country is intolerant when it comes to even sitting down and listening for an hour to the other side.
Incredible, I mean, they're the ones that profess to be the most open-minded and free speech advocates and all that garbage from their standpoint. And let me tell you something: they're the most intolerant people in the world, and this was a perfect example of it. That they would not, they did not like what I had to say, and they did not want me to say it to anybody else. They didn't have to listen to it. But they prevented anybody else from doing so. Now, that's not fascism. You tell me what is.
Well, it makes my blood boil no matter what side of the fence you're on. That shouldn't be happening to anybody. Congressman Tancredo, Riley Matheson, thanks for sharing your story with us today.
You bet. Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
New overnight, a protest at UNC-Chapel Hill gets out of control.
Campus police use pepper spray and threaten to use tasers to keep students back.
Good morning, Carolina. Welcome on this Wednesday, April 15th. It's 5:30 now, 53 degrees. I'm John Clark.
And I'm Barbara Gibbs. Thank you for joining us. You're not going to believe the story from the Carolina campus last night. An anti-immigration speaker, former congressman, was there to talk about it. And what happened at the end had police possibly almost using tasers on student protesters.
We'll have that story in a live report Chancellor. Also, another pirate attack on a U.S. ship. They fought back, and we'll tell you what happened.
And the gross story of the morning. You're not going to believe, we always worry about this going to food restaurants sometimes. You worry about maybe somebody doing something to your food. Well, it actually happened, and it ended up on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah, it's disgusting. All right. More from that rowdy student protest is coming up. UNC-Chapel Hill.
There are two big questions about it this morning. Did the protest get out of line, and did campus police go too far? Tim Nelson is live at UNC with the very latest on this. Tim?
Yeah, good morning, John and Barbara. This is certainly going to be the talk of campus today and probably the community and even beyond. Here's today's Daily Tar Heel, hot off the presses. Protesters Stop Speech is your headline. As you guys mentioned, it was supposed to be a speech given by a former congressman against illegal immigration, but protesters clashed with the speaker who left campus early. They clashed with police as well. Protesters who weren't allowed into the overcrowded room where the speech was being given gathered outside the doors and chanted. In this video, you can see things growing increasingly tense with campus police. There appears to be pushing and shoving on both sides. You can see an officer shaking pepper spray, which was used. Some cough and cover their mouths. In this YouTube clip, you see police firing their tasers in the air. No protesters were actually tased, and reportedly no one was arrested either. These clips show what was happening inside the classroom. Former Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo had been invited to UNC to give a speech opposing in-state tuition benefits for illegal immigrants. Protesters interrupted his speech. Here you see them stretching out this banner in front of Tancredo reading, "No one is illegal." You see Tancredo grab the banner and confront one of the people holding it. You can stay. Then you hear glass shatter, a window broken by more opponents outside. Things become more chaotic. Tancredo leaves. Those who came to hear him speak, rather than prevent him from doing so, were clearly upset.
Honestly, there wasn't any point. He was not going to be allowed to speak over the drowning shouts of the students of Carolina, which is just embarrassing.
Now, according to published reports, Chancellor Holden Thorp here at UNC said last night, quote, "We're very sorry that former Congressman Tancredo wasn't able to speak. We pride ourselves on being a place where all points of view can be expressed and heard, so I'm disappointed that didn't happen tonight. I think our public safety officers appropriately handled a difficult situation." Later today, as day breaks, we'll try to speak with people who were at the event last night here. Both sides of this. Clearly, there were a couple of sides to it. We'll be following the story all day long. John and Barbara?
Tim Nelson live on the UNC-Chapel Hill campus. I'll bet you this is going to make national headlines.
I bet it will. All right, Tim, thank you.
Thank you.
Outrage tonight over an assault on our right to free speech. Former Congressman Tom Tancredo was to speak at the University of North Carolina, but instead his speech on illegal immigration was violently overrun by leftist protesters. Lisa Sylvester reports.
Demonstrators gathered to protest a speech by former U.S. Congressman Tom Tancredo. He was speaking out against illegal immigration to a crowd of 150 people at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He was invited by a newly formed student organization called Youth for Western Civilization that opposes what it calls radical multiculturalism on university campuses. But when the protesters tried to enter the building, security said no because the room was at capacity. According to campus police, the dissenters continued to push forward and did not leave even after verbal warnings. The police dispersed pepper spray into the air. A security spokesman said one of the officers activated a taser, but it was not directed at any specific person. Watch what happens here. 2 minutes into Tancredo's talk, two women stand up with a banner and disrupt his speech.
Constitutional protection.
Seconds later, someone breaks a window. At that point, Tancredo's speech is called off. He later said that while the protesters had a right to free speech, so did he.
You can do it under the law, you can do it with respect, and everybody walks away happy. The people who want to be protesting, they get to protest, they can hold up their sign, and, I get to say what I need to say, and the people who came to hear me get to hear me.
The university's chancellor sent out a letter to students saying, quote, "There's a way to protest that respects free speech and allows people with opposing views to be heard. Here, that's often meant that groups protesting a speaker have displayed signs or banners silently expressing their opinions while the speaker had his or her say. That didn't happen last night. On behalf of our university community, I called Mr. Tancredo today to apologize for how he was treated."
There were no injuries, and so far no arrests have been made, but an investigation by campus police is underway. And the chancellor says criminal charges will be pursued if they are warranted. The Division of Student Affairs is also investigating student involvement.